Okay, think about this for a second. You're suddenly arrested for murder. And the evidence, well, it looks pretty bad. There's blood, even bite marks they say match yours.
Hmm.
That's basically what happened to this guy, Burke. Now, he was eventually cleared. DNA proved him innocent really fast, like under 24 hours.
Sure,
But
sure.
in that time, his whole life was put under this intense microscope.
Right. The scrutiny must have been incredible.
Totally. And here's the part that really got me. While he's locked up, the media just publishes this list of stuff found in his home. We're talking like X-rated tapes, kitchen knives, even the titles of the books on his shelf.
Wow. Just laid bare like that.
Exactly. And Burke himself said something really telling afterwards. He said, they didn't mention the 3 Bibles in my room. They could just as easily said I was a religious fanatic, which just shows how skewed the picture can get, right?
Absolutely. It's fascinating and kind of chilling how quickly those personal details, even about someone totally innocent in the end, get weaponized almost, shapes a whole narrative.
Yeah. It makes you wonder, like, if you were in that spot, what stuff in your house, perfectly legal, perfectly normal maybe, could suddenly look suspicious or be twisted?
That's the core question, isn't it? And that's really the jumping off point for our deep dive today.
It is. We're diving into personal privacy, how to shield your information better in a world that feels, well, increasingly see-through. Our guide is J.J. Lina and his book, How to Be Invisible.
It's a really comprehensive look at the subject.
Right. And our mission today, for you, the learner, is to pull out the most practical, maybe even surprising insights from Luna's work. We want to help you spot potential vulnerabilities and figure out some concrete steps you can take.
Yeah, practical steps. It's not about, needing to go live in a cabin somewhere.
No, definitely not. And it's crucial to say, this isn't about hiding illegal stuff.
Yeah.
It's just about smart personal security in this information age we're all living in. Being prudent.
That's a really key point Luna makes, too. He's not telling people to break the law. It's more about being deliberate, thinking carefully about what info you give out and who you give it to, understanding the surveillance landscape, really.
Okay, so let's dig into that first point, the vulnerability of what's inside your own home. Thinking back to Burke, the media just blasting his personal belongings out there. It makes you ask yourself, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Even if you were totally innocent, would you be okay with the public knowing about, say, a bunch of cash you keep at home? Or any guns you own legally? Or, I don't know, the entire contents of your phone?
Yeah.
All your emails? Even, like, empty wine bottles in the recycling?
It's uncomfortable to think about. We assume our homes are private sanctuaries, but that idea can shatter pretty quickly if you suddenly become a person of interest.
Yeah. And Luna really hammers home how easy some of this info is to get.
He does. He says something like, a PI might find your home address with just one phone call.
One call.
Yeah.
And get a list of your assets, like cars or property, maybe the next day.
Exactly. It's a stark reminder that a lot about us is already out there, accessible to people who know where to look.
Which really sets the stage for why you might want to think about privacy more proactively.
Precisely. And that leads into Luna's idea about different levels of privacy.
Right. This is fascinating. He lays out these 4 levels of privacy. And the basic idea is the more invisible you want to be, the more it costs someone in time and money to track you down.
It's like putting a price tag on anonymity, in a way.
Totally. He suggests level 2 is a good starting point for a lot of people. That means things like having your utilities or your smartphone in an alternate name,
Okay.
getting license plates that don't directly trace back to you easily, shredding your mail and documents, stuff like that.
So basic operational security, almost.
Kind of.
Yeah.
And Luna estimates at that level, a PI might need to spend like $5,000 or more just to reliably find you.
Wow, okay. So even those relatively simple steps create a significant hurdle. It puts a real cost on invading your privacy.
Yeah, exactly. It makes it harder, makes it more expensive. He does mention the extremes too, just for context.
Like level 4.
Yeah, level 4 is basically, big government agencies coming after you. And his advice there is pretty blunt. Give up.
Huh. Right. That kind of puts things in perspective. There's a limit to what an individual can do against state power.
For sure. But for most of us, the concerns are probably more around that level 1 or level 2. Avoiding unwanted attention from individuals, maybe companies, debt collectors, that sort of thing.
That makes sense, keeping things more manageable.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit. Luna also talks about dangers from, well, the inside, who you trust.
Ah, the human element. Always tricky.
He tells the story of Stanley Mark Rifkin. This guy was a bank programmer, stole millions using wire transfers.
How do you manage that?
Insider knowledge, basically, and
Hmm.
social engineering. He knew the systems, knew who to talk to, what to say to get the codes or information he needed.
So the biggest threat wasn't some external hacker. It was someone who already had access and knew how to manipulate people.
Exactly. As a reminder that sometimes the leaks come from oversharing or trusting the wrong person, even unintentionally.
You really do have to be careful what details you let slip, even to friends or colleagues sometimes.
Definitely makes you think twice. And speaking of things we take for granted, mail. Regular old snail mail. Luna says residential mailboxes are incredibly vulnerable.
Really? How bad is it?
He throws out a number: over 100,000 mailboxes burglarized daily in the U.S.
100,000. That's staggering. I had no idea. We just assume it's safe sitting there.
Right. He even describes thieves doing this sleight of hand thing. They walk up like they're dropping off a flyer, but they actually snatch your mail and leave the flyer. Quick swap.
Wow. Thank you.
And then there are these counterfeit arrow keys. You heard of those?
Vaguely. They open those big blue collection boxes, right? And apartment mail panels.
Exactly. Gives access to potentially thousands of mailboxes. Lana points out that when this stuff came to light, people were asking, why weren't we warned? What's being done about it?
Good questions. It seems like a major security gap we just don't talk about much. We worry so much about cybersecurity.
And forget about the physical mailbox right outside.
Yeah.
And it gets weirder.
How so?
Luna talks about mail covers. This is apparently something government agencies can do without a warrant.
Okay, what's a mail cover?
Your mail carrier is told to record the return addresses on your incoming mail. Who's sending you stuff, basically?
Seriously? Without a warrant?
Apparently.
Yeah.
And the implication is, if you're writing to someone who's under a mail cover, your address gets noted down. You could end up on a list just by association.
Man, that's unsettling. Guilt by association through the Postal Service.
Kinda, yeah.
Oh,
So what can you do? Luna suggests practical stuff, like just don't put a return address on your letters.
or use a fake one.
Or use an alternate, yeah. Though he tells this funny story about someone mailing cash who put tons of extra postage on it, thinking it seemed less suspicious.
Yeah.
It's totally backfire. Made the postal workers suspicious, eluded the DEA. So trying too hard can also draw attention.
Huh.
Right.
Anything out of the ordinary flags you.
Then he mentions this alternative way to mail cash. He doesn't exactly recommend it, seems risky, but it's illustrative.
What is it?
Multiple envelopes, small amounts in each, mailed from different post offices on different days, different fake return addresses each time. Lots of layers.
Wow. That's a lot of effort. And like you said, probably carries its own risks.
For sure. He even brings up newspaper delivery. Says it's a small privacy leak because it confirms you live there, sets a routine.
Never thought of that. So what's the fix?
Cancel it and restart under a different name later. Have a friend pick it up if you travel. Best option, he says, is delivery to a ghost address somewhere not your home.
Disrupting those predictable patterns. Makes sense.
And he compares snail mail to email. Says he actually feels physical mail is more private sometimes.
More private. In what way?
Because, he argues, there's no easy way to automatically scan the contents of every single letter going through the system. But email. Computers can search all of it for keywords instantly.
That's a really interesting point. We assume digital is less private, but maybe not always in the same way.
Yeah. He even gets super specific, like talking about how Freon spray can make envelopes transparent, who knew, and suggesting putting carbon paper inside to block that.
Carbon paper? Does anyone even still use that?
Huh. Good question. But it shows his level of detail, right? Even mentions remailing services to obscure the origin. Very old school spycraft stuff almost.
Definitely thorough. Okay, so mail security. What about interactions? Like telling the truth versus not.
Right. This is a tricky area. Luda's pretty clear on his own approach. He says he won't lie to the government, but withholding non-essential info. That's fair game for him.
So like signing up for a website or something.
Exactly. He might use a different birth year, maybe vary other details that aren't strictly necessary for the service. His logic seems to be withholding isn't the same as actively deceiving in an official capacity.
It's a fine line though, isn't it?
It is. He lays out 3 choices for the reader. Follow his pattern, never lie, ever, or, well, lie about everything. It frames the options.
Okay.
Then he gets into hiring private investigators. And this term, pretexting,
Pretexting. What's that?
Luna says it's basically just a polite word for lying to get information.
Ah. So PIs might call pretending to be someone else to dig up dirt.
Pretty much. And this raises ethical questions, all right? If you hire a PI who uses shady methods, are you responsible?
Good question. Where does the client's responsibility end?
He uses this example. Carl is stalking his ex, Lorelei. He hires a PI, Guido. Guido does stuff like impersonating a cop.
Yeah.
It highlights the potential for abuse.
Yikes. Yeah, that's definitely crossing lines.
But then he contrasts Guido with his brother, Paolo, another PI, who insists on verifying the client's story first, checks if there's a legitimate reason for the investigation, shows there's a spectrum of ethics in that world.
So it pays to know who you're hiring and what methods they use. The Carl example is a good cautionary tale.
Definitely. Okay, so let's talk about managing your mail more securely. Luna's big on P.O. boxes and private mailboxes.
Right, the CMRA places, commercial mail receiving agencies.
Exactly. He suggests a P.O. box for personal stuff, and a CMRA may be using a made-up company name for business things, deliveries, packages. Create separation.
A buffer zone between your real home and your correspondence. Makes sense.
But there's a catch with official post office P.O. boxes.
What's that?
You usually need two forms of ID, and one has to show your current home address. And you sign something saying it's correct. Kind of defeats the purpose if your goal is address privacy.
Oh, right. The system requires you to reveal the very thing you're trying to protect. Classic catch-22.
So Luna offers workarounds. Maybe use a friend or relative with the same last name to open it.
Okay.
Or open it in the name of an LLC, a company structure. He even says from his experience, after a while, mail addressed to almost any name often gets put in the box anyway.
Interesting. Leveraging the system's potential flaws or flexibility?
Yeah. And for the private CMRAs, he suggests things like rent it, then move, and just. Don't tell the CMRA your new address. Or pick a small independent mom-and-pop place that might not be linked to big databases or ask for as much ID.
Going off the beaten path a bit.
He even talks about renting a mail slot in an empty office building once, just with a handshake, no real name given.
Wow. That's pretty creative. Finding those loopholes.
He also mentions this charity mission idea for a ghost address.
Charity mission.
Make a small donation to a charity that takes mail for residents, then ask if you could use their address for personal business, kind of banking on goodwill.
Might work, might not. Worth a shot, maybe.
Or look for office services or bookkeeping businesses.
Yeah.
Sometimes they accept client mail as part of their service. Another potential ghost address.
Lots of different angles to consider there.
But he throws in a warning story, too. This PI, Geraldine Adams. She moved, got new checks. Her new, supposedly secret home address was printed right on them.
Oh, no. Even the pros slip up. A reminder to check the details.
Totally. Which leads to his point about not displaying your house number. Makes it harder for someone to just jot it down.
But how do guests find you?
He suggests the pink flamingo trick. Put a distinctive marker, like a flamingo, somewhere visible, nearby corner of the street, maybe. Tell guests, look for the flamingo, I'm 3 doors down from there, or whatever. They find you without needing the exact number displayed.
Huh. Low tech, but clever. The pink flamingo trick. I like it.
Okay, what about protecting your address in other situations? Like travel, check luggage tags.
Yeah, should you put your home address on there? Luna thinks probably not.
Right, use a friend's address, the CMRA address again.
Seems safer, less risk if the bag goes missing or someone glances at the tag.
What about schools? Parents often have to give addresses, social security numbers for kids.
Luna points out public schools aren't exactly bastions of privacy. He suggests private school or homeschooling as alternatives if you're really concerned, though obviously that's not feasible for everyone. Right, big hurdles there.
Then there's couriers. FedEx, UPS. Luna says try to avoid having them delivered to your actual home if you can help it. Don't let them know where you live.
Why is that?
Well, partly just minimizing who knows your address, but he also points out there are weird ID rules. They often don't ask for ID for a home drop-off, but do if you go pick it up.
Inconsistent. So his advice is,
have the sender mail, authorize delivery without a signature. And maybe just don't answer the door if they show up unexpectedly.
a bit extreme maybe, but avoids confirming residency.
And here's a big one. Never, ever get pizza delivered to your home under any name.
Seriously? Why pizza?
He says it's a classic PI tactic to confirm an address. Easy, cheap way for them to see if someone answers the door at that location.
Wow. Okay, no pizza delivery. Got it. That's dedication to privacy.
He also warns about accidentally letting people with skip bail or warrants into your home. And being careful what you discuss with cleaning staff.
Insider threats again?
Yeah. He actually suggests long-term Jehovah's Witnesses for cleaning, citing their reputation for discretion, which is specific.
Okay. Interesting suggestion.
Mentions Dr. Lohr's advice, only grandma as a babysitter. But concedes a nanny cam is a practical surveillance tool if grandma isn't an option. It's all about who has access to your space.
Controlling the environment. Makes sense.
And he finishes that part with a real PI story, trying to find a guy named Victor near Lake Tahoe. By digging through Victor's brother's trash, Fernando, down in San Jose, looking for clues, letters, anything.
Going through someone else's trash hundreds of miles
Yeah.
away, that shows the lengths they'll go to, finds connections anywhere.
Exactly. Okay, let's talk ID, official numbers, SSNs, driver's licenses.
Right. The stuff we think we have to give out.
Luna stresses that wanting privacy isn't just for criminals. He tells a story about a guy named Norman whose SS got misused. Shows anyone can be vulnerable.
Yeah, identity theft is a huge issue. Protecting that number is critical.
So when a government agency asks for your SSN, Luna says look for a Privacy Act statement. Understand your rights do you have to provide it in this specific case.
But what about, like, the IRS taxes?
Luna says, yeah, providing it to the IRS for taxes is generally necessary and okay in his view. He's pragmatic about legal requirements.
Drawing a line between legal obligation and voluntary disclosure.
He talks about driver's licenses becoming like national ID cards, but points out you don't actually show it that often outside of maybe renting a car or getting pulled over.
True.
So he advises against putting your real home address on it. Why? Potential for DMV info leaks or skies?
DMV spies? Is that a real thing?
He seems to think so, or at least that the data isn't perfectly secure. His recommendation, use your passport as your main ID.
Why a passport?
Generally has less info directly linked to your daily life, your address, your car, compared to a driver's license. He even tells a story about someone getting a passport just in time for an emergency family trip to Spain. Handy to have.
Okay, passport over driver's license for general ID. Interesting.
Yeah, apartment hunting. Managers want everything, right? DL, DOB, references, SSN, job info, bank details.
The full background check.
Luna says push back hard on giving the SSN. Dress well, look reliable, offer the passport. Maybe offer more rent up front or a bigger deposit.
Try to negotiate.
Yeah. Or explain you need privacy. Maybe mention a past stalker issue, even if hypothetical. If you have to show a tax return, maybe black out the SSN. He gives an example of John renting an apartment, giving very little info this way.
So it is possible to rent without giving up your SSN sometimes. Takes effort, though.
Definitely. He touches on needing an SSN for real estate deals, for IRS reporting, but suggests alternatives. Maybe structure it as a lease, or use a New Mexico LLC, which gets a business tax ID number, a TIN, instead of using your personal SSN.
LLCs for privacy. That's a common theme.
He notes it's illegal to use a false SSN to get a license, but just giving a wrong number accidentally usually isn't penalized, though he still says don't use fake SSNs. They might link you to bad stuff later. He even questions if we always need credit and the SSN link that comes with it.
Challenging the assumptions. What if you don't have a passport, though? Can you still maintain privacy?
He admits it's harder, lists the limitations. He also mentions this company, Image Data, apparently funded by the Secret Service, selling driver's license photos. Raises flags.
Selling DMV photos. Wow.
Talks briefly about religious objections to SSN, citing Revelation 13, but says only do that if it's truly sincere. Clarifies using an alternate name, like a pen name or stage name, is fine, different from an alias used to deceive.
Legitimate reasons versus fraud.
Shares a funny bit about Frank Abagnale Jr. dodging questions when posing as a doctor, and uses Cambridge, MA, and a former governor's unique birthday to show how even non-secret data points can identify you when combined.
The mosaic effect. Pieces fitting together.
And finally advises not giving doctors your entire life story medically, just what's relevant now. Keeps some history private unless needed.
Right. Manage the information flow everywhere. Okay, communication, phones, email. This must be where privacy really breaks down.
Luna basically says telephone security is an oxymoron, an illusion. Too many ways to intercept.
So what's his advice for really sensitive stuff?
Go old school. Write it down, put it in an envelope, use a stamp, mail a physical letter.
Back to snail mail again. Wow.
He says unlisted numbers don't mean much anymore. Reverse lookups online make them easy to find. Advises just answering hello. Don't give your name away up front.
Simple but effective, maybe.
Mentions older cordless phones were easy to scan. Stresses that for a secure call, the other person needs a secure line too. And if you call someone whose phone is tapped, they get your number.
Right. It's a two-way street, or lack thereof, for security.
Says there's no hacker-proof answering machine. Points to the huge News of the World phone hacking scandal as proof of voicemail vulnerability.
That was massive. Hacking celebrity voicemails.
Yeah. Luna suggests alternative ways to call 911 without giving your exact location or name right away, like using a cell phone, gives general area, not specific address,
Hmm.
or have a friend call, or call from, say, a hospital using a ghost address if things are really serious.
Planning for emergencies while maintaining privacy, that's next level.
Mentions conference calls could be used to secretly record people. Talks about clicking noises on the line being a classic tap sign, but says government taps are usually undetectable. Suggests maybe labeling your own phone's tapped as a deterrent, maybe just psychologically.
Huh. A bit of reverse psychology.
Explains caller ID spoofing, making a call look like it's from a different number, and trap lines PIs use to figure out where you are when they call you.
Deceptive tactics.
Highlight smartphones. Super convenient, sure, but huge privacy risks. Tracking, booking everything online, all that data.
They're basically tracking devices we carry willingly.
Mentions the News of the World guy, Clive Goodman, jailed for hacking voicemails. Shows how weak passwords make it easy. Suggests maybe having a trusted friend, a nominee, buy and manage a smartphone for you if you need one but want distance.
Outsourcing your phone ownership. Interesting.
Shares his own approach. Used a very basic, dumb phone, prepaid, remote billing, only turned it on when needed. Suggests buying used phones online too. Big fan of prepaid phones, no ID, no contract usually.
More anonymity.
Even suggests using a pager with a cell phone. Says pagers are much harder to track.
Pagers. Now that is going old school.
Okay, email. He tells a story of Paul Douglas Peters. Guy got caught because of his email trail.
What's the lesson there?
Never use email for real secrets. Avoid public computers for email. And if you're hiding, don't drive cars registered to you, connects dots.
Digital breadcrumbs everywhere.
Explains how Christopher Cheney hacked celebrity emails. It wasn't super technical, he just guessed the answers to their password reset questions. What's your pet's name? Kind of stuff.
Oh man. Security questions are often the weakest link.
Right. Luna says use tough answers or even false answers for those. Warns that stuff online lives forever. Old posts, embarrassing photos can come back to haunt you.
The internet never forgets.
His advice for safer email. Use services with HTTPS encryption. Password protect emails if you can. Strong, unique passwords everywhere. Avoid spyware on your computer. And think about the security of the person you're emailing to.
Good checklist. Basic digital hygiene, really.
Mention services like this message will self-destruct, TMWSD, for secure, temporary messaging. Lists the kind of data your internet service provider, ISP, collects. Cautions that using a fake name and PO box with your ISP doesn't help much. They can still trace your connection's physical source.
Can't easily hide your actual internet connection point.
Warns about general internet danger, scams, malware. Be super careful with random emails, attachments. Suggests using search engines to check out potential dates or contacts. Search their name, email, phone number. See what comes up.
Using the internet's transparency to your advantage sometimes.
And hammers home the password point again. Unique, strong passwords for every single account. Shares his system using letters from the website's name to create them.
That password discipline is probably one of the single most important things.
Absolutely. So wrapping up our deep dive into Luna's How to Be Invisible, it's pretty clear protecting privacy today isn't about vanishing completely. It's more about awareness. Yeah.
Being aware of the information you're putting out there, consciously or unconsciously, and taking deliberate steps.
Exactly. Understanding those trade-offs between how convenient things are and how secure they are. We've hit on a lot of practical ideas you can think about, from handling your mail differently to locking down your digital life.
What really stands out from Luna is the level of detail. It's not just one big fix. It's lots of small adjustments, a consistent mindset across everything you do.
Which brings us to a final thought for you, the listener. Think about it. What does a world with less and less privacy actually mean? For trust, for freedom of speech, for just feeling like yourself, autonomous.
Big questions. It changes the fabric of society, potentially.
It does. So maybe the question is, what's one small change you could make starting today to take back a little more control over your own information? Luna's book goes way deeper, of course, so if any of this sparked your interest, definitely check it out for more detail.
There's certainly a lot more in there.
Well, thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Lots to think about.
Definitely. Stay safe out there.